It's time to get good. My name's Michael.
And I'm Benny, and this is How to Get Good.
We're two guys who are on a journey of self-improvement, and we want to take you along with us.
Each episode focuses on specific aspects of self-improvement.
We're going to be delivering you practical, relatable, most importantly, actionable advice that you can take on your journey of self-improvement. Today's episode,
Today we're talking about Zone 2.
which I'm already struggling with right now.
You're out of Zone 2 now.
No,
You're too high.
I'll slow it down.
Slow it down.
Zone 2, it's a misunderstood term. You might have heard about it on TikTok. You might have seen some mate talking about it at the pub. We spoke about it. I know, I'm struggling. We spoke about it in our HIT episode earlier. We're going to dive into this very misunderstood term. Thankfully, Dan's here to give us a little bit of clarity on it. I like that you're not even struggling and I'm dying here.
Well, I'm cruising in Zone 1 probably.
Righto, so let's dive into it. Zone 2.
Can we dial me up a little?
Yeah, good. This just looks like I'm a boiled pig next to this.
Benny should be power walking. Like that's, it would be for a normal person. Power walk would get you in Zone 2.
Yeah, let's get that.
Actually, speed walkers or walking have some of like the highest VO2s out of everyone. Like all the athletes, they go off the chart because they're pretty much just cruising in Zone 2 all the time.
Oh yeah, okay, rolling. So as you may have noticed, we've got a walker or a power walker and an exercise bike. We thought to make this interesting and practical, we would be in Zone 2 for the entirety of this episode. They say, I've heard that Zone 2 is the perfect output, or I guess effort level to maintain a conversation. So let's put that to the test. I think I might be an outlier here, to be honest. Shit, I'm like 20 hard.
Yeah, so you're a bit loose. So the way that my understanding, and Dan can correct me if I'm wrong, but for the average person from a heart rate perspective, it's your age. So 220 minus your age, and then 60 to 70% of that number is your Zone 2, is kind of like the heart rate version of it.
I've been told mine is about 120. I'm 38.
Yeah, that'd be the top of your range. So I'm 30, so 220 minus 30, 190 times by 70 is like 130. And so 60% to 70%. So I'm looking to like 110 to 130 as my heart rate. And then you're maybe a little bit lower, 100 to 120.
Thank you, Dustin Hoffman. So Zone 2 training, your heart rate gets at that level that you've just spoken to.
Yeah.
And you maintain it for how long? How long are we talking?
Like, I mean, 200 minutes a week is kind of like the goal, but you want to do it in like over 30 minutes. Well, I like to do it in over like 30-minute intervals. And that's just mainly because if you go for a walk like this or something, for me, and it's like 20 minutes, you actually feel like you've just done nothing.
I disagree, but that's like, well, Dan, why am I dying?
Well, I mean,
Actually, to be kind with your response.
yeah, you shouldn't be. The whole principle of Zone 2, and it's I think a confusing term. It's really just an energy system that is a low intensity steady state cardio. The idea is you're using your type 1 muscle fibers. You're predominantly using fat for fuel in an aerobic or oxygenated environment. And so it's not meant to feel like it's a massive strain. You do need to go beyond just like strolling down the street into maybe power walking, a very light cycle, a very light jog to get up into the Zone 2. But you do not want to go beyond it where you start to burn more glucose and in an anaerobic way. And so there are some really technical ways to measure whether you're in Zone 2 using blood lactate levels, but not all of us are in a doping scheme or an elite athlete where we have those things available to us. The best heuristic is not just applying a measure to your heart rate and assessing the zone. The best heuristic is whether you can pass the talk test. Okay. So talk test is that you're feeling some level of strain, but you're still able to hold a conversation. You are not panting so much that it breaks your sentences. And the second heuristic to apply is the rate of perceived exertion. It should be about a 4 to 5 out of 10. The idea is that you should feel like you could do this for 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, sick. I reckon I've got another 20 to 30 minutes in me.
Okay, you should slow down then. Just
If the rules are, because I mean, I'm still talking, is it because I'm not a bike person that this is maybe making my core?
Absolutely. There are conditioning to the form of cardio that you're doing. And so you just need to listen to your body, recalibrate based upon the talk test, the rate of perceived exertion. And the idea is it actually should be easy. It shouldn't be dead easy, but it should be easy. And the hard thing about zone 2 is it sometimes feels too easy. Whereas with HIIT, the hard thing is it's brutal.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is there a penalty to not actually being in zone 2 versus zone 1? And so I right now feel like I'm probably not quite there. This is
What's your heart rate at the moment?
It'll be about 90, I think.
The penalty would be ROI.
Yeah, so you're still getting all the benefits around. First of all, what is...
So you're still using predominantly fat for fuel, but your ROI on your time doing that training is lower because you're not elevating out of the zone 1 energy demands into zone 2 whilst preserving the energy system of zone 1 and 2. And so it's just an ROI on time.
Yeah, let's just do a quick switch because I now have a perceived output at a heart rate that just seems wrong to me. Like I'm hurting here. There's like, we've been doing this for what? 4 minutes? like I'm genuinely I'm dripping.
Yeah, it's true. Here's...
Like,
show me more.
That's the private paid Patreon, brother. This is...
Come on.
This is what peak fitness looks like. Radio. My gut, this is literally a walk in the park.
Tell me what your gut tells you.
Did you lube up this? This is really slippery.
Yeah.
I could pump this up and do 2 hours of this.
But your heart rate is actually going up.
Well, it's probably a transition with the blood flow.
And they're getting off.
And the excitement.
I'm excited. Big Kev would be proud. We were having this chat because I had an idea of what zone 2 was before I really dug into this. And what I wanted to ask was like, it feels like this is like, I don't know, your intermediate level that allows you to like focus on doing things properly. Like when I remember when I was doing F45, like I was so out of breath that my form was really taking a hit and I did some soft tissue damage. And I was like, I'm too old to be doing this because I'm so out of breath that I can't focus on anything but staying alive. This is stitch up that you thought this is so, like, I feel...
It's too easy.
Let's hold that thought for a bit, but it's definitely, this is easy. I could do this for 3 hours.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Was I being a coward?
A little bit, yeah, but this is also a weird height. This is a pretty weird...
Is it because you're sitting back and like that part of my cord?
Yeah, I use that at my desk.
You're a different breed, and that's why you're there answering the questions, because you know what's good for people. We were talking about zone 2 as like bike and walking. That seems normal. Basketball?
Well, basketball actually is a pretty high intensity interval-based sport if you think about it, sprinting up and down the court.
Oh, just like, let's say half court with a mate type thing, one-on-one.
It's much, the idea, so again, it's a type of low intensity, steady state cardio. So the two, low intensity, steady state. And so you want something you can do continuously at the right steady.
And so if someone else is there, it's going to throw off your cadence.
Yeah, that's right. Totally. But it's better than nothing. Hey, like if you'd like to go play basketball, just do it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, okay, so what's the benefit? Because this feels like I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
But my heart rate is higher than it was on that.
Yeah. I mean, there are some amazing core benefits. Again, the idea is you're using your type 1 muscle fibers and you're using predominantly fat, oxidized aerobically through oxygen for fuel. And so what that leads to is an increase in density of mitochondria, the power plants of our cells.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Absolutely. And so you get a couple of benefits from that. One is like it improves your everyday energy levels. This level of cardio conditioning you form through zone 2 means that you will have more energy throughout the day. The increase in the mitochondrial density means that when you do higher intensity exercise, you're able to clear the lactate byproducts faster and so sustain that pace for longer.
Is that a recovery thing or is that like a endurance thing?
It's both.
Cool.
You recover faster after the exercise, able to sustain that exercise at that pace for longer. And then lastly, zone 2 also just generally improves your overall cardiovascular conditioning, which is great for your cognitive health, as well as your heart health and your overall cardiovascular system.
The way that I like to imagine it, and so correct me if I'm wrong down here, but it's like there is a car has gears. Being in second gear, cruising on the highway, you can go for a very long distance with relatively efficient fuel consumption. And then it's kind of like, cool, now you want to bring energy into the car. So opening the fuel cap is essentially an insulin spike that brings energies into the cell. And
Opening
so,
the fuel cell and putting fuel in, you mean? Or just opening it and driving along?
Yeah, and so the more efficient you can get at doing that, the better you can transform like external energy into energy in the cell and functions of the cell. So that is good for a bunch of the systems that Dan was talking about.
The most important thing for me in terms of getting better is my resistance, right? Objection handling internally for me is I don't want to go for a run. Probably because I'm pushing myself too hard, because as far as I knew, I had to.
Totally, yeah.
Are you telling me that this level of output, obviously not the same as like going for a solid run up a hill, but there, like this is, what am I trying to say?
Well,
like this seems like I can agree, my brain can agree with my body that this is good, but I would have thought this isn't beneficial.
No, so like maybe less about gears of a car. Think about it more like base load power. So like low revs, you know, it's really fuel.
Hey, I don't have a learners, guys. If we can stop doing car analogies, that'd be
All right,
sick.
okay, all right. Well, maybe it's like your base load power by forming that conditioning in zone 2, and then HIIT training is like your peak power output. Put those two together, and you've got a faster race pace you can sustain over time. But irrespective of whether you're like trying to improve your race pace at anything, or trying to get faster, ultimately doing zone 2 will just improve your overall energy levels and ultimately translate into better body composition, better metabolic health, and better cardiovascular health.
How many times a day should I do this roughly?
Well, look, I think
Every day?
Did you say how many times a day?
Oh no, how many times a week? Sorry.
Yeah, look, the hard thing with zone 2 is like most people kind of don't enjoy it because they feel like they've got to be like working themselves at their limit to get some
Because
benefit.
we're so time poor, right? And so like the little chunks we have.
My recommendation to anyone is always like just try and hack your routine. You know, if you're getting the train into work, like why not just power walk in 1 day a week? If you have a dog, why not take them for a longer walk once a week as opposed to just to the park?
This feels like something you could walk a baby at. Anyone who's got a kid,
Do you have a kid?
head support, I could,
Okay.
but I don't.
we
Kind of looked at me.
No, I was just saying.
I don't
like,
need it. We.
Well, I'm just thinking. I'm 38. I reckon
I'm-
a lot of 38-year-old blokes
I'm 33. I could.
would have a kid. And I'm just sort of saying, like, I know they're time poor, and I was just trying to think, like, this really does feel like, this feels I could do anything.
Yeah, I mean, you could get an off-road stroller and pick up the pace and get into zone 2. Absolutely.
Kind of to the point of your question, which is around like, it's very hard to justify doing this instead of really
Going
hard,
harder,
like
yeah.
go for a hard run, like smash yourself. But you look at,
But if you're super unfit, like,
but not even that, if you're super fit, so if you look at like Olympic level cyclists, they'll be doing 80-90% of their training in zone 2.
oh really?
Yeah, there is like quite a lot of...
Oh, because they would die if they went at Olympic pace all the time, wouldn't they?
Well, it's more about even doing a lot of time at zone 2 can increase your VO2 max. So when you do want to go to your absolute maximum, you can actually go harder and faster because of the zone 2 training.
Is there like let's say you work at 100%, your VO2 max goes, this is a made up number, it goes up 10%. You go at zone 2, which is like, let's say 4 times less than the hardest you can go, and it goes up at like 3%? Is it like...
It's really hard to give you a deterministic expectation of, but to come back to Benny's point, absolutely. You speak to any trainer working in an endurance sport, right? The majority of an athlete's training is in zone 2 to build that mitochondrial density, to build that base conditioning, to build that lactate clearance, and support their ability to sustain a high VO2 max for longer, right? And so the majority of people, if you think about cardio training, it should be like a barbell approach where you've got your base load zone 2 for much longer, shorter periods in high intensity interval based training. You combine the two and you have optimized your overall conditioning and energy levels.
So in How to Get Good, we love talking about actionable things to apply to your life. I'm pretty base level on fitness. So Dan, in terms of a protocol of like how I can implement zone 2 into my week, what would you suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bevo, I would suggest that you do power walking for 45 minutes. And I know you love to talk. And so I'd suggest that you call someone and have a conversation. So you are constantly regulating with the talk test on whether you're still in zone 2.
Right, and just, can I give you a version of like what puffed talk might be, and you can go, that's too much. So if I'm like talking like this.
Failed the test.
Okay, so it's just, it has to be as you would stationary?
I would say that you're not quite in zone 2 now. Like the pace could be a little bit higher, but you are currently satisfying the talk test. But I'm sure you could probably increment up a bit in intensity,
Yep.
whilst maintaining zone 2 and not kicking into more of an anaerobic energy system.
I think the other good one, or that I've heard that is very practical, is if you are needing to breathe through your mouth. So if you can just breathe comfortably in and out through your nose, and that's fine, you haven't gone past it. If you're feeling like you need to get more oxygen in through your mouth, you'll probably push past zone 2.
I get a lot of allergies.
My sinuses are never really great.
It's not always, a lot of people are mouth breathers. It's not always the most practical test, but it is another great heuristic. Is like, what are the signals of the level of strain I'm under? And have I gone too far?
But so to pull it into like practicality, there is the way to, hold yourself in that by kind of talking to someone. But kind of the points you were talking before, you just want to like blend it into your life, I think. So
was it once a day, twice, or 3 times a week?
I would let's start with once a week. And to Benny's point, my recommendation is always like, hey, use your transit as an opportunity to do power walking into work in zone 2, and then use another lifestyle activity, like whether you got a dog or whether your partner, you want to go for a walk. Just do that at a pace and with an intention around being in zone 2, and that way, you're able to squeeze it into your routine without it becoming a burden.
Might try to find like a zone 2 buddy.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm happy to be that buddy for you.
You won't want to listen to me chat for 45 minutes.
But just to kind of summarize that point. So you want to get it in, if you can do 30, 45 minutes, if you can do that every day, that would be great. But if you're doing it every other day, it'll also be great. You want to hit about 200 minutes a week, but then start replacing other things, like lead it into your day. So if you have a meeting at work, go for like a walk meeting. If you're going to get on a phone call, go for a walk. So that is a really practical way of getting it into your daily life.
Such that you'll find opportunities to turn it into a zone 2 sesh.
Yeah, get off the bus a couple of stops earlier and walk home. It's going to be good to like shake off the day anyway. And then by the time you get home, you've had a bit of zone 2 and you're kind of ready to like start getting ready for bed or whatever it is.
Well, look, I'm significantly better off than I was on the bike. And I know a little bit more about zone 2. Hopefully you've got some actionable outcomes that you can apply to your day. We're all here to get a little bit better every day. That's why we're called How to Get Good. Benny?
Yep.
How are these?
This is actually way harder than that.
Like tempered steel. Dan, good on you, mate. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right.